God's chosen ones. 7 signs you're getting closer to God. You thought that getting closer to God would feel like peace, like light pouring through your windows, like finally exhaling after years of holding your breath. But instead, you feel like you're unraveling. You can't stand the music you used to love. Your friends feel distant. Even prayer feels quiet. And deep down, something whispers, maybe I'm doing something wrong. But what if I told you this ache is not distance? It's proof. Because when God starts drawing you closer, He begins by pulling you away from distractions, away from noise, away from everything that made you feel comfortable but kept you from becoming. This isn't punishment. This is purification. And if your soul has been feeling strange lately, that's your confirmation. You're getting closer than you think. You used to feel God so clearly, in the music, the laughter, the sunlight pouring into your kitchen. But now, everything feels quieter. Not wrong, just different. Your favorite songs feel empty. Your group chats are silent. Your prayers feel like echoes. And deep down, something inside you aches, not from distance, but from transformation. Because here's what no one told you. Spiritual closeness doesn't always feel like joy. Sometimes, it feels like holy disorientation, like God rearranging the furniture of your soul. You're not crazy for feeling disconnected from what once comforted you. You're not backsliding. You're being reshaped, refined, redefined. He's peeling off the layers that kept him out. Old appetites are dying. Old patterns are unraveling. Old attachments are loosening their grip. And it hurts, not because God has left, but because He's closer than He's ever been. This is the ache of divine nearness. This is what it feels like when heaven stretches your spirit. This is how God moves you from comfort into calling. So if your soul feels unsettled lately, if you've been asking, God, where are you? Lean in, because sometimes the silence is a signal, and what feels like a breakdown is actually the moment you step into becoming. Part 1. The holy discomfort you didn't expect. You didn't see it coming. The moment when the things you used to love stopped tasting sweet. The shows you used to binge now make your spirit feel sick. The music that once made you dance now leaves you feeling numb. Even laughter with certain people doesn't echo the same way anymore. And you wonder, what's wrong with me? But nothing is wrong. Everything is being made right. This is what no one warns you about. That when you truly start getting closer to God, the first sign is discomfort. Not on the outside, but deep in your soul. You'll start to feel a holy ache. Not guilt conviction, not fear separation, not sadness sanctification. God begins to peel back the layers. Things that used to satisfy your flesh now disturb your spirit. Not because you're broken, but because you're being rebuilt. You'll start asking questions you never used to care about. Why does this conversation feel heavy? Why do I feel drained after being with them? Why does this fun leave me feeling empty? You're not becoming negative. You're becoming sensitive. Your soul is shedding old skin, and the things that once fit now feel like shackles. That's what growth does. It hurts before it heals. It disturbs before it delivers. In John 8, Jesus said, when He, the Spirit of truth, comes, He will convict the world of sin and righteousness. Conviction is not God punishing you. It's Him preparing you. He's teaching your spirit how to hear His frequency, how to crave holiness, how to recognize the counterfeit before it grabs your heart. And so, yes, this season feels strange. You cry for no reason. You feel lonely in rooms filled with people. You don't laugh at the same jokes. You don't indulge in the same escapes. But that's not weakness. That's awakening. It's the feeling of chains loosening, even if you weren't sure you were bound. It's the moment when the cocoon begins to crack, even before the wings appear. So if you're feeling uncomfortable in the places you used to enjoy, If the old you feels harder and harder to go back to, if your comfort is slowly being replaced with clarity, congratulations. You've just stepped into the first sign. You're getting closer to God. Part 2, when silence speaks louder than miracles. You've prayed, and still nothing. No sign, no miracle, no word from heaven, just silence. You whisper to the sky, God, do you still hear me? But all you get is the quiet hum of a world that's moving on, while your soul feels stuck. You remember a time when he spoke to you so clearly, in a verse, in a song, in a sunset. But now, nothing lands, nothing stirs, nothing moves, and the silence feels louder than any storm. You ask, have I done something wrong? Did I miss him? Why do I feel so far from the one I've been trying to get closer to? But let me tell you something sacred. The silence is not absence, it's examination, because the teacher is always quiet during the test. This isn't punishment, it's proof that the heavens are watching. It's your soul's exam in faith, in endurance, in trust without proof, in the dark corners of your night. God is closer than you think, not moving away but leaning in, watching how you respond when you can't feel the warmth of his hand. Do you still believe? Do you still trust? Do you still worship? Even when it feels like no one's listening. That kind of faith doesn't shake hell, it shatters it. Because anyone can lift their hands when the miracle shows up. But what about when the room is quiet? Or what about when the heavens are still? What about when the prayer hasn't been answered? And you praise anyway. That, beloved, is sacred obedience. And yes, it hurts. It hurts to worship through silence. It hurts to stay faithful when the breakthrough delays. It hurts to keep showing up when you don't even know if he's watching. But he is, and he never left. This is the moment your faith is being forged, not just felt. This is the season where your roots are growing deeper than your emotions. This is the part of your journey where your spirit becomes unshakable. James 4:8 says, draw near to God, and he will draw near to you, not instantly, not always with goosebumps, but faithfully, silently, powerfully. So if you're sitting in the silence right now, don't run, don't numb it, don't walk away. Wait, because in the silence, he's not punishing you, he's promoting you. And the louder your soul aches in the silence, the closer you are to your next divine answer. Part 3, the forgotten signs of growth. You didn't notice it at first. How you started skipping certain songs, how gossip made you nauseous instead of entertained, how your spirit pulled back from places your flesh used to run toward. You didn't post about it, didn't journal it, didn't celebrate it, but it happened. Quietly, faithfully. You stopped needing to prove your point. You stopped chasing what never loved you back. You stopped finding comfort in things that secretly drained you. And that is growth, not the kind people notice, not the kind you get applauded for, but the kind heaven records, the kind where the old you begins to loosen its grip, not with fire and noise, but with stillness. You feel it when you're scrolling and suddenly think, this content doesn't feed me anymore. You feel it when you're about to respond out of habit, but your spirit says, no, be still. You feel it when you're in a room full of people, but your soul starts craving a deeper silence. And for a second, you wonder, am I becoming cold? Am I losing who I was? But no, you're not growing cold. You're just being called. You're outgrowing the appetite for noise, outgrowing the version of you that settled for almost healed, outgrowing the version of you that found peace in the temporary. Growth doesn't always feel like a mountaintop. Sometimes it feels like grief, because in order to become, you have to let go of who you were. That's why you're crying more. That's why you're quieter now. That's why small talk feels unbearable, because your spirit is being expanded, and everything that doesn't align with your next level is being gently but firmly removed. The Bible says in Romans 12, 2, be not conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Renewal isn't loud. It's not a spotlight moment. It happens in the shadows, when no one claps, but heaven nods. That's what's happening to you now. You're not off. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're being renewed. Your cravings are shifting. Your standards are rising. Your discernment is sharpening. The things that once entertained you now disturb you. The people who once affirmed you now confuse you. It's not rejection, it's refinement. And yes, it's lonely, but it's also holy. Because these small changes, these quiet, invisible choices, are the building blocks of who you're becoming. And when no one sees it, heaven still sees all of it. So don't mourn what you're leaving behind. You're not losing your joy. You're shedding what joy could never live inside of. This is the pruning before the promise. This is the becoming before the breakthrough. You are growing. You are becoming. You are getting closer. Even if no one claps for it, heaven is already celebrating. Step out. Part 4. You love differently now. Something in you has changed. Not just how you pray, not just how you spend your time, but how you love. You used to hold grudges like armor. Silence was your shield. Forgiveness was a distant idea, reserved for people who didn't hurt that bad. But now, you pause before reacting. You breathe before replying. You bless people you once wanted to avoid. That's not weakness. That's what God's love looks like when it starts living inside you. You're not letting things slide. You're letting them go. Not because they didn't matter, but because your peace matters more. This is how you know your heart is healing. You don't need closure from people who were never capable of giving it. You don't need apologies from those who ghosted you in your grief. You just release them with grace, with peace, with eyes that still water, but hands that no longer cling. Because now, you see people not as problems, but as souls, wounded souls, confused souls, souls who were never taught how to love deeply, because they never received it either. This is divine maturity, to love someone enough to let them go, to forgive without being asked, to choose patience when you have every right to rage. 1 John 4:7 says, "Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God." This is what it means to know Him, not through perfect theology, but through imperfect people you choose to love anyway. Even the ones who left, even the ones who lied, even the ones who never noticed how hard you tried. Because when God's love fills your spirit, you stop needing to win. You stop needing revenge. You stop needing validation to confirm your worth. You become love. You become the safe space you always needed. And yes, people will call it naive. They'll call you too sensitive, too soft, but they don't know that what looks like softness is actually steel covered in mercy. They don't know how many nights you cried before learning to pray for them. They don't know how many wounds you had to lick before you could extend your hand again. But heaven knows. And God, He's smiling. Because this kind of love, the kind that costs you your pride, that's the kind that shifts the earth. That's the kind that breaks generational cycles. That's the kind that proves you're getting closer, closer to God, closer to the heart of the one who loved you first. Part 5. The unseen growth that changes everything. Nobody sees it. Not the mornings you chose worship over worry. Not the nights you cried into your pillow but still whispered, "I trust you, God." No one claps for private surrender. No one throws a party when you choose silence over revenge. No one notices when you delete the message you almost sent, or when you choose prayer over panic. But heaven does. And this is the growth that changes everything. Not the kind that's broadcasted. Not the kind that gets likes, shares, or applause. The kind that happens in your soul. Deep, unseen, sacred. Where the Spirit of God whispers, Stay faithful. Even here, forgive again. Speak life, especially when it's hard. And you do, not because it's easy, but because you've changed. There's a new root system forming beneath the surface. Deeper, stronger, invisible to the world, but fully visible to God. This is where real strength lives, in the places no one sees, in the yes you whisper in the dark, in the tears that become fertilizer for your future. You've been planted, not buried, and what's happening in the soil is holy. It doesn't look like progress, but it is, because your reaction time is slower now, not out of weakness, but wisdom. Your first instinct is no longer defense. It's discernment. You're not desperate for attention. You're grounded in intention. You've stopped asking, God, when will you use me? And started saying, God, make me usable. And that chosen one is the kind of growth that shakes heaven. Philippians 1:6 says, He who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. So, not just the public work, but the quiet one, the invisible one, the one no one praises, but everyone will eventually see the fruit of. Because that's how God works. He grows you in silence, shapes you in shadows, and then one day, He reveals you, not as a miracle out of nowhere, but as the evidence of every tear you sowed in secret. So if no one's clapping for your growth, keep going. If no one notices the changes, keep becoming. If no one celebrates your obedience, know this: heaven already did, and one day soon, the world will see what God has been building all along. In you, you're not broken, you're becoming. So now you know that the ache you've been feeling wasn't abandonment, it was alignment. That the silence wasn't punishment, it was the sacred stillness before revelation. That the discomfort wasn't a sign you were slipping, it was proof you were shedding. You're not the same person who walked into this season. Your appetite changed, your circle shifted, your soul started reaching for something deeper, something holy. That's not failure, that's formation. You didn't backslide, you outgrew what no longer fit the person God is making you into. And yes, it was lonely. Yes, it was confusing. Yes, you questioned if you were doing something wrong. But now, you see it clearly. You were getting closer, closer to God, closer to truth, closer to the version of you that's drenched in purpose, anointed in stillness, and refined by fire. You've cried in silence, worshipped through walls, forgiven what no one knew you were carrying, and heaven watched every second. So if this message stirred something deep inside you, if it felt like I was speaking your story out loud, it's because this was your confirmation. This was your divine whisper. You didn't imagine the shift. You didn't overreact to the ache. You're not crazy. You were chosen. This pain had a purpose. This silence had a voice. And this journey, it's only just beginning. So I want you to do something right now. If this was for you, if your heart is trembling with truth, if your soul is whispering, finally, someone said it, type 7 in the comments. Let it be your yes to heaven. Let it be your signal. I'm ready. I'm aligned. I'm becoming. Because you didn't just watch this video, you were called into it, and now it's time to walk like it.